Oh, goody.
Alright, what's going on everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Mercenaries video. So in this one we are taking a look at the fighters and what you should focus on leveling up for all three of them. Fighters actually got kind of the short end of the stick this drop. Only 3 fighters, so this one's going to be a little bit shorter. But we're going to get right on into it. Before we do, if you enjoy this type of content, do remember to like and subscribe. Does a ton to help out the channel and keeps the Mercenaries videos coming. Yeah, let's get right on into it. We're starting with the legendary of the bunch, Ysera. So for Ysera, she has some very, very powerful abilities. Overall, the way I think we should be going with her, I really like getting Verdant Breath to at least level 3, like we have here, and then you can naturally get it up to 4 and 5 afterwards, but it is going to be her main damage dealing ability, and it is the only ability she can cast on turn 1, so I do think prioritizing this makes a lot of sense. Then your next priority is going to depend on the way you want to use Ysera. So if you want to be using her dream cards, which I think could be potentially even the best way to use her, specifically for Nightmare, buffing up the attack a crazy amount, or just sticking that on a character that can't attack, so they're taking a huge amount of damage every turn. Seems really, really good. The other Nightmare abilities aren't bad either, but I think that's the strongest, and you definitely see the scaling up with that more notably than you do in just getting the damage scaled up after level 3. So probably would try and get this to level 5. And then here we have Emerald Oracle. So the only thing, well, I guess there are 2 things here. 2 things that go up with this one are you get a bit more health, and their ability is faster, or return them to the bench. So I think the better way to use this equipment is using it as a bounce to send the opponent back. Now, because of that, it actually could make sense to not level this ability initially, because if you want to use it on an enemy and you don't want them to get healed up if they're not at full health, well, you're going to be healing them for less if you don't level it up, and it doesn't mess with the speed or anything. However, it will speed up your characters less, but if you're returning them to the bench, doesn't speed them up at all, and obviously you can't like level the effectiveness of bouncing something to the bench. So this one is definitely the one I would probably level last. I do like getting all of these to like level 3 baseline, then probably getting Emerald Dream up to 5 first, Verdant Breath next, and Oracle last. In terms of her items, she actually has a level 4 equipment already, so that actually saves us quite a few coins, which is pretty good. This one's good for dragon builds, but you don't have to level it at all, obviously, because it's already level 4. So you really only have 2 choices here. And I think the best item for Ysera is Ysera's Vengeance. Just giving more damage and giving Verdant Breath the potential for more healing, to me, seems like the most powerful thing, especially since Emerald Majesty is a bit more conditional, because not only do you have to use a 1 cooldown skill for it, but you have to use the specific option of Ysera Awakens. So pretty clear cut to me. I think Ysera's Vengeance is the way to go. So again, get all these to level 3, then probably Emerald Dream first, Verdant Breath, then I'd probably do the item, and Emerald Oracle last, then you can round it out to max with the Emerald Majesty. Next up, we have one of my favorite characters here, Bwonsamdi. So this character is super duper cool, and because of his unique ability in the Insufferable deals, I highly recommend leveling this one all the way up first, as what goes down with this one is the increasing of the cooldown. So this one actually, it matters a lot what level it is, as opposed to just, you know, getting an extra damage or 2. This is actually reducing the cooldown every time. So very, very significant if you want him to be used effectively in PvP, especially getting those deals off as often as possible. I would definitely recommend getting Irrefusable deal first. Then when it comes to his next ability, probably just going to be Soul Subjugation here. It's pretty high damage output, so I think you just want to get this up there. Again, get it to level 3, and then the bonus kind of falls off a bit, so you don't have to worry about maxing it out right away. But it is a lot of damage, and it's going to be his primary method of dealing damage. So for that reason, I would definitely focus this as the second one. And then Binding Contract, this is a cool ability. You can use it as kind of like a cheap cookie snipe if the cooldown is off. One nice thing is we have one of his equipment here that actually makes your abilities refresh, so you can do this right away. If you're worried about the opponent killing you, you can kind of revenge kill them by dealing that 90 more. But this one's a bit more conditional, so I would probably focus on that one last, as you're really mainly using this for a snipe or to kind of revenge kill for a lot of damage. And I think that's not Bwonsamdi's like most used application. Then we have his items. So I think there are two items that really stand out here. For his general purpose item, I think Arena Contender is the best one. It gives you refresh 2 on all your abilities as a battle cry, and then death rattle your abilities refresh 2 for your other characters. So that's pretty good. The main reason this is so good is because you can actually bounce all the characters with irrefusable deal, and then when he comes back in, it makes it so you refresh 2, so you can actually get the deal back right away a lot of the time, which is really, really good. So I really like that. Also, this starts out at level 3, so you only need to level it up once, which is really, really nice. One of the easier items to level because of that. Then his next equipment, build specific, but Spirit of the Dead. We've seen, I think Crimson Panda did a video about a troll comp with him. That's something I want to try out as well at some point. I think this is a big reason why, because you can do kind of crazy healing stuff here with Kazakus golems potentially. You have enough trolls in your comp to make use of it. So I think it's pretty cool, and I'd probably run it if I wanted to do some stuff with the troll comp. And then new client. This one's really neat. Death Rattle, resurrect another one of your mercs that died this game with up to 24 health. Yeah, so I like this, but I think resurrecting or making a copy of an enemy merc or a friendly merc or whatever just isn't that strong of an ability when they're at such a low health. And they kind of need to be at a low health for this to be balanced, kind of like Kazakus's dragon form golems. When you get a kill and you make a copy of whatever you killed, it's cool, and there are fringe case scenarios where it's relevant, but overall it doesn't seem that beneficial, because usually they can just get sniped off, especially by an AoE. And also, I believe currently the merc doesn't resurrect with its item, which is a pretty big downside. Don't know if that's intentional or not, or a bug, but I think because of that, kind of makes it the worst equipment of the bunch here. But yeah, those are kind of the overall things I'd recommend for Bwonsamdi. There does seem to be a few bugs with him right now, and specifically the irrefusable deal stuff with swapping speeds seems to be getting not applying the right reductions. If there is a modifier like a passive speed boost from Valera or Vol'jin, that is almost certainly a bug, and I believe it's been reported on the forums, but just something to be aware about. You might not see his full potential for swapping the speeds and whatnot until that bug gets fixed. And then last but not least, we have Garona Halforcen. So Garona's a really, really neat character, and she can kind of be used in a bunch of different ways. She has a shadow ability, a nature ability, and a lineage ability, which is just one of the orc abilities that you can discover, kind of like Finley's discover a Murloc ability. But she can change into anything, which is really cool. So she can become fighter, she can become a protector, and become a caster. She also has the ability to start off neutral like Cho, but she doesn't take a hit to the health for that. She actually gets bonus health for that, which is really, really neat. But yeah, looking at her abilities here, I think what you want to do is you want to level up Smoke and Knives first, because even though it is a bit slower of an ability, it packs a heck of a punch. The fact that if you have any stat buffs, which one of her equipments can accomplish, she gets pretty big, she hits something, and then deals 20 more to one of the adjacent things, and you can kind of position that or choose what you're attacking, so you can make that guaranteed in some cases. And it also changes her to a fighter, so if she isn't a fighter, then she becomes one, and you get a little bit more extra damage. So I definitely get that one to level 3 at least. Then the next one, I think you want to do the Shimmering Toxin here. So you gain 10 attack, take 12 less damage this turn, so kind of a defensive setup ability, and you become a protector. And it starts off cooldown, so you can actually do this on turn 1. I really like that starts off cooldown ability. But yeah, this is a good way to help her set up, so you're reducing the damage per turn, and you're buffing her up so she's actually going to hit fairly hard and potentially could even hit with a roll advantage by being a protector as opposed to a fighter. So this is probably the one I would go for second. And then last, the one and the same, discover a lineage ability, and then combo, you get to be a caster first. These discover abilities are pretty neat, but I do think they are generally a little bit weaker because you can obviously whiff on getting an ability you want. Sometimes you get a really good one or really good options. Sometimes you won't. I do think generally the orc options have better abilities than the murloc ones. They're less like random bad ones in there. So I think it's not too bad, and if you can benefit from her becoming a caster, maybe that's good enough on its own. I do think the first two abilities are definitely the stronger ones, and I would focus on them first. In terms of her items, so this is again going to depend a lot on the build. If you are using a kind of multi-unit team with a bunch of different orcs or humans or draenei, this is a pretty good one where you just get good stats. Worth noting, I don't think you actually get more attack. I can level it up here just to see, but yeah, this is just buffing the health, so it'll max out at 310. So I don't think you get a whole ton for upgrading this one overall, so even if you're using it, you don't have to level the item for it to be rather effective, but this is going to be very specific towards if you're using these types of units in your build. Probably want to focus on that one for that good initial damage. I really like Knife of Indecision. I think this is probably her best equipment because starting off neutral is great because it really limits the damage that can be dealt to her by removing all crit stuff. And since she goes a little bit slower, you can attack, deal your damage, and then become a fighter afterwards. So kind of setting up for the following turn. So you're guaranteeing you're not taking very much damage and you still get some decent damage in because between her attack and the extra 20 kind of adds up. But yeah, I like this one quite a bit. Also gives her a little bit more survivability, which is never a bad thing. We saw Cho had something like this, but he actually had minus health for it, whereas she has plus health. But I think that gives us a very strong chance of being a very viable and potentially her best equipment. Then the last one here, Shadow Step. End of turn, if you control another mercenary, gain +3/+3 and return to bench, and that obviously scales up a bit as you level it. So this one I think is also very good. I'd probably tie this with Knife of Indecision, or very close at least. I have played a bunch with Arana recently, and the fact that you can have it go to bench and you're gaining a benefit from that. In Arana's case, it's reapplying the battle cry. In her case, it is getting more stats. But you're also getting switch advantage. So this means you can use your bench a lot earlier in the game and you can actually plan out that strategy. Whereas before, you couldn't really plan it out a whole ton if you just had to wait for your opponent to kill your stuff and then you got to bring one in. So it was kind of on them when you got to make a switch in. Now you can switch in whatever you want any turn and you're getting kind of a benefit for it. So I like this equipment a lot. Again, going to be kind of build dependent, but if you have a build where you want to get stuff out from your bench earlier on, this is probably the equipment you're going to want to run. So yeah, overall, Smoke and Knives, Shimmering Toxin first, then one and the same afterwards, and then depending on your build, I really like Knife of Indecision or Shadow Step. Shadow Step if you value more switch-ins, Knife if you value taking less damage on turn 1, and then if you really want to go in with like a multi-tribe composition and get some more stats out of it with orcs and draenei and humans, then I would go with the Halforcen Legacy. But yeah, that is going to wrap it up for this video here. If you enjoyed it, do remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.